Former Alabama running back Justice Haynes is in the portal, and Ohio State can't afford to miss this one.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, because you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Simply visit FanDuel.com to get started. During today's show, we'll discuss a kicker in the portal the Buckeyes must pursue, as well as another recruiting loss to the pesky Oregon Ducks. But before we get to any of that, it's all about the former Alabama running back, Justice Haynes. He's in the portal, and Ohio State can't afford to miss this one, because Ohio State's running back room in 2025 could potentially look a whole lot different than it does in 2024. Trevion Henderson is gone, going to the NFL. He cannot return to college football. Quinshon Judkins can stay in college, but maybe he believes it's time for him to go off to the National Football League. And when you think about those potential losses, Ohio State's running back room in 2025 is going to be full of guys that are inexperienced. Yes, TC Coffey is believed to be going to be healthy next year. So, yes, you have a guy that has scored a touchdown in Columbus, but that was 2, maybe 3 years ago. I forget exactly when that was. But TC Coffey even coming back, James Peoples, inexperienced. Sam Williams-Dixon, inexperienced. 3 incoming freshmen, enough said. There's a position for a guy to come in there and to make an immediate impact. In comes Justice Haynes. We may can want some film on him, and I want to make sure that I remembered him the way that he was on the football field. This young man can play. He can be a big piece of the pie in Columbus if the Buckeyes pursue him heavily and if they win that recruitment. He's a guy that can run between the tackles. He can run outside the tackles. His patient running style is one that I think Carlos Lachlan will be able to dive into and crack a few of the codes that will make him an even better all-around running back. In his career, Justice Haynes, 104 career rushing attempts in his 2 years in Tuscaloosa, 616 rushing yards, 5.9 yards a pop, adds in 9 rushing touchdowns. He also had 17 receptions. Those were his only receptions in Tuscaloosa. That was this year during a sophomore campaign, added in 99 yards in the receiving area as well. He's a guy, man, when you think about guys in the portal, especially at some of these positions where Ohio State needs the guys to come in to make an immediate impact, running back's one of them. Offensive line, you need to go out there and get 3, maybe 4. I mean, I'm not trusting I trust some guys in Columbus, but you need to go out there and get 3 or 4 offensive linemen in the portal and bring them in saying, look, we believe you can start or do whatever else that you need to do, but don't be lying to these kids. Bring guys in that you believe are starting caliber, but also realize it's going to be a fierce competition with these guys coming into Columbus to try to take some starting roles that some guys that have already been there are trying to get. I'm here for the competition. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But offensive line is one where you got to go out there and pursue that thing heavily. You need 2 pass rushers in the portal. 2. I like Caden Curry. I like Kenyatta Jackson Jr. I think Ohio State's going to do some different things in the defense in the upcoming year where pass rushers are going to be needed heavily. Caden Curry is going to play. As of right now, I got Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson Jr. starting next year. That does not mean that Ohio State can only rely on them to rush the passer. Caden Curry's a playmaker. I've been high on him for years now. But there's a lack of pass rushers in Columbus. I don't know if it's Larry Johnson's fault. I don't know if it's players not being able to get developed in the right way. I don't know what it is. But all I know is some guys Larry Johnson's bringing in, they're not pass rushers. And that's a problem. In comes a portal, go out there and get some pass rushers. I think that Ohio State should go out there and get a safety, which is something we're going to talk about in the very next segment, because I think you don't want to roll in with inexperience with Caleb Downs' running mate. Lathan Ransom, gone, going to the NFL, cannot return to college. In comes somebody from the portal. And I think there are a couple of guys that Ohio State can pursue in the portal. I'm just not sure if they're going to heavily pursue them like they should. I firmly believe you got to. But running back is one of those positions, too, where you need to go out there and get somebody. I don't care how much faith you have in Carlos Lockwood. I don't care about how much trust or how your belief that these guys can get developed. I don't care about any of that nonsense. I care about Ohio State going out there, and what they should do is get guys that can provide an impact now, because they've already provided an impact at the previous spot in college football. That's what Ohio State's focus should be. Is do we believe, do we know? We may believe somebody can make an impact, but we know what homie in Tuscaloosa did. There's a cat out there at USC, name escape. I just wrote his name down too. Was actually recently in Columbus on a visit on Friday, and he's a running back that Ohio State is pursuing. And what's the thing that Ohio State is showing? There are guys out there that have done things at previous places, big boy brands. USC, big boy brand. Now, the products on the field may not be as a big boy product should be. That may not look that crisp. That's a big boy brand, though, man. You're in Southern California. Well, that's not a hotbed for college football or a hotbed for college fans. There's a lot of football town out there in Southern California. And if you're out there doing good, big things there at USC, it makes sense why Ohio State brought you in for a visit. I think Justice Haynes is the guy. Man, I firmly believe that once Ohio State pursues him heavily and gets him on campus quicker and does what they need to allow him to make sure that he realizes he is a priority for Ohio State and he commits. What does that mean for Ohio State? You're checking off a box. And right now, what the portal does for the Buckeyes, it allows them to check off boxes going into next year as far as we need to make sure these 10 positions are looked at and we get answers at these 10 positions. Well, if you bring in a running back, that's checking off one of those 10 boxes. Now, that may not be the exact number of players of positions that things need to be checked off, but realistically, that number may be larger than 10 and maybe smaller than 10, but it's right there in that 10 spot. There are a lot of gaps to fill in Columbus in the roster. Do you want to roll in there next year with inexperienced quarterbacks in that room? Maybe. You can go out there and get a quarterback in the portal to booster up the experience and the leadership in the room. Running back. We've been talking about that all show. Receiver, I think you're fine. Tight end, I personally think you're fine. Offensive line, use a portal. D-line, use a portal. Linebacker's tricky because I'm not really sure that I really want to go to the portal for a linebacker. But if Laradidis wants to, I can understand that. Secondary, go to the portal. There's nothing wrong with it. Special teams, go to the portal. Utilize that thing to check off boxes to make your roster more well-rounded heading into the winter workouts and into spring practice in 2025. Ohio State has the goods. Ohio State has the guys. Ohio State has the ability to go out there and lure a lot of elite talent in the portal to Columbus, and that should be their mindset while looking at Justice Haynes, a former Alabama running back, did a lot of great things down there in Tuscaloosa, and he is one guy that I think can do good things in Columbus if the Buckeyes do what they need to do and bring the house to get Justice Haynes to commit to the Ohio State Buckeyes. While Justice Haynes is still on the Buckeyes' radar, there's a former safety who was a top safety in the portal that is no longer on the Buckeyes' radar. I'll tell you why next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Simply visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, all the extra goes down in 2 places on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and to make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Now, last week on the show, we dove into Dylan Fineman and why Ohio State needed to heavily pursue him in the transfer portal. He was a multi-year starter at Purdue, former Big Ten Freshman of the Year in 2023, back-to-back years of 100-plus tackles, and he would have been an immediate impact player in Columbus. Now, he was set to take a visit to Oregon last week. I believe 11 Warriors was told that he was going to take a visit to Ohio State this week. Well, that visit to Columbus was canceled because Fineman committed to Oregon over the weekend. And my first thought when I saw this was another recruiting loss to Oregon. And it's starting to surprise me. Now, you may say, Jay, it shouldn't surprise you, but there are guys that Ohio State has lost in the recruiting battle to. Not so much in the portal of late, but in this current recruiting cycle for the high school level, Trey McNutt, an in-state kid from Cleveland. Oregon came from Eugene and said, hey, man, we know you're right here in Ohio State's backyard. Come on to Eugene, man. Come on over here. We don't have a stadium as big as Ohio State's, but our fans are wilder. Come on over here and play and be a Duck. We will have you a brand new jersey every single weekend. We got the NIL package you can't resist. Come on over here and play for us. And McNutt said, cool, I'm going to leave Ohio to go play at Oregon. Also, Dorian Brewer. This is one that I was kind of shocked by because I thought Dorian Brewer would have not gone to Oregon. I thought Ohio State was right there in the running for him. Honestly, I believe the predictions before he committed to Oregon were that he was going to commit to Ohio State. He's a corner, a guy in the secondary, a unit at Oregon on Oregon's defense that is top-notch. It's elite. And Dorian Brewer said, hey, man, I ain't going to Columbus. I'm going to Eugene, Oregon. It's still shocking to me. And Fineman's one of those ones where I don't know if I could have done a better job a week ago just discussing how he is a need. It's a must. I understand you have to trust your high school level recruiting, but you need guys in here next year that can run this defense the way that Jim Knowles wants it to be. Also knowing going into next year, you open your year up with Texas, a playoff team, the SEC runner-up this year, a team is going to have a future first-round pick in Arch Manning at quarterback. You better come in here ready to go. This isn't a feel-out game. It's not a game where you can just go roll into the shoe on August the 30th and say, man, well, no matter what the outcome is, we're going to be fine this year. This ain't one of them games. And so for Ohio State right now, maybe there's some things outside of their control, and ultimately it's the kid's decision. It's the athlete's decision. So I understand why there's numerous reasons why he may want to go to Oregon. I mean, Oregon just won the Big Ten championship. I get that. But in my estimation, Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs are two of the best recruiting pitchers Ohio State can have and any team can have. Lathan Ransom, 5 years in the program. Caleb Downs just transferred in. So no matter if you want to see a guy who just transferred in and see how he played, or you want to see a guy who's been in the program for 4 or 5 years, you had both of those guys right there on Ohio State's defense this year, and the Buckeyes missed. And maybe the recruiting pitch was off. Maybe the NIL package was better at Oregon because, it could happen. I am not sure. But what I know is it's not over. I'm not a doomsday kind of guy that comes to the portal because there are other guys that Ohio State could pursue in the portal. There's 3 guys that came to my mind. One has 2 years of eligibility left. The other 2 only have 1. And the guy that has 2 years of eligibility left is more of the question mark, not because of his level or because of his productivity, but because of the level of football he played. Zachariah Poyser is that guy, played at Jacksonville State under Rich Rodriguez. He has 2 years of eligibility left. He is a guy that I think when it comes to moving up, it's possible. When you saw Josh Simmons go from San Diego State at the G5 level to Ohio State, the elite of the elite in the sport, and got developed, and he may very well be a first or second round pick in the upcoming NFL draft. I'm not going to say where he's going to be, but Simmons got developed, did a lot of good things. For Poyser, I don't know. When I see a G5 safety, just like a G5 offensive lineman, I have no idea what to expect. Now you got Jalen Stroman from Virginia Tech and then Devin Turner from Northwestern. Both of those guys are in the portal. They both have 1 more year left to play in college football. Stroman, when he was at Virginia Tech, this past year he only played in 1 game, missed most of the season. But in 2023, he had 55 tackles, 2 TFLs, 2 pass breakups. The stat sheet doesn't really show all of his impact, but his impact was there for the Hokies defense. And then Devin Turner from Northwestern. One thing I love about Northwestern's guys, they're all fundamentally sound. They all get the job done. And so even though you may say Northwestern isn't that talented, they have very smart individuals. It's Northwestern. It's one of the most prestigious colleges in around. So it all makes sense to me why those guys have the brains. They're as disciplined as they are. This past year, Turner, they're at Northwestern, 51 tackles, 2 TFLs, 3 interceptions. One was a pick six, had 3 pass breakups. Career high, season high in tackles was his sophomore campaign there in Evanston, Illinois, 79 tackles. Also that year, 1 TFL, 1 interception, 5 pass breakups. And so I know the stats only show one thing. Those are a couple guys, really 3, that Ohio State may want to say go out there and pursue in the portal. But you got to do something. I am not a person that believes right now you can just sit back and wait while preparing for the Tennessee game, and you can go out there and say, well, I'm going to wait and sit this one out. I'm going to wait and see what actually happens. This is not the time for that, because Ohio State right now, there are things Ohio State wants to do. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes have 3 goals every single year. Beat the team up north, win the conference, win the Natty. And when you say those things every single year and you continually fall short, something has to change. May it be in your high school recruiting. May it be on the coaching staff. May it be your use of the portal. Whatever it might be, something has to change, because the current way things are going, your philosophy is not getting the job done. You're not accomplishing your goals. So for next year, to snap the losing streak to the team up north, what do you have to do, Ohio State? Do some things different with the portal. What does Ohio State have to do to get to the Big Ten championship? Make sure they go undefeated in conference. If you go undefeated in conference, I can think of one year where there have been 3 undefeated teams in the conference. Just take care of business in your conference. Now, you may want to say, Jay, it's going to be hard. Duh. It's hard to win 9 games in a conference. No matter if you're in middle school, high school, or college, or in the NBA, or in any professional level. It's very, very hard to win and to go undefeated in your conference, or at some other levels, undefeated in your division. It's hard. It's not supposed to be easy, which is why most teams don't do it. But Ohio State, to do that, to make sure they control their own destiny and have a shot to win the conference based off the things that they can do, things they can control, beat everybody in your conference. Is it hard to do? Absolutely. It's still a goal. And sometimes the hard things to do, you got to make a philosophy shift, or a tweak is more like it, to make sure you do those things. Now, for Ohio State, when it comes to the portal, Ryan Day, I understand your boss has given you a vote of confidence multiple times. Once via his conversation with the Columbus Dispatch, once last week on the podcast on the Friday show, once last week on the Morning Juice on 97.1 The Fan. 3 separate times Ross Bjork has provided a strong vote of confidence for Ryan Day, which is cool. You have his vote of confidence. You have the belief of your boss. But at the same time, while your boss believes in you, I believe your boss knows you got to tweak some stuff. Because Ross Bjork mentioned in his interviews, yeah, Ryan Day has tweaked some things during his time in Columbus. But I think Ross Bjork also realizes some more things have to change. Change isn't bad. Sometimes people are slow to change. I am a person at times have been slow to change. But change isn't bad. Especially change in this way to make your roster better, to make your team better. Go out there, get a guy in the portal, bring him in, allow him to compete. If he doesn't win the job, it's not a bad thing. That just means you have guys on your roster that have been competing to win that job. And you hope that those guys winning the job are the right guy and they are playing well enough consistently to get the job done. I think that's the philosophy in Columbus, and I think that Ohio State shouldn't shy away from competing and should make sure they have the right guys for the job. Speaking of having the right guys for the job, man, it was a good transition. I don't really pat myself on the back, but that one just rolled off the tongue. Speaking of having the right guys for the job, there's question that Jaden Fielding, if Jaden Fielding is the right guy for the job, which is why I believe the Buckeyes got to go to the portal to get a kicker. This episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of the year. The College Football Playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Now, one thing we don't do on this show a lot is talk about kickers. I am not a kicking aficionado, neither with the field goal kicking or with the punting, so I don't try to come on here and wax poetically to talk about things that are going on with that part of the game. But we do know one thing is Jaden Fielding has not gotten the job done in the biggest moments. And with that being the truth, there's a guy out there in the portal that I believe Ohio State needs to go out there and heavily pursue. When the way that I say bring the house for Dylan Fineman and bring the house for Justice Haynes, y'all might want to bring the juice, bring the house for Jesus Gomez, and just let that young man take the wheel. And because this man is one of those guys that can come in, I don't care where he kicked at previously. He can come in and get the job done. Now, this past year, Gomez over there at Eastern Michigan, he was 27 of 29 on extra points and 20 of 25 in field goals. And you may want to say, Jay, like, that's not really that great. Some of those kicks came from 50 plus. And so you may understand, well, if he's doing that, he might have a kick missed or 2 or 3. He was 6 of 11 from 50 plus. He also made 46 of 58 field goals while they're at Eastern Michigan, which kind of gets why there's a larger variety of the misses. Only missing 5 extra points. That's not bad. Out of 100, it's not bad. It should be a whole lot higher of a percentage, but still, there's guys in college football that miss 5 or 6 or 7 in a year. And you're thinking, like, what in the world is going on? It's not an easy thing to do. Some of us watch on College Game Day when Pat McAfee rolls out there and says, hey, you got X amount of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. All you got to do is make a field goal, NFL field goal. You're thinking, like, this is easy. It's not. It's not easy. 1, you're not used to kicking like that. 2, you got people around you. 3, you got a microphone in your face. 4, you're on live TV. And 5, this is the premier college football pregame show in the country. So there's a lot of different factors rolling through your mind. You're thinking, man, I know the kid from the last week, a couple weeks ago, when they were at the SEC championship in Atlanta, all of a sudden, Pat McAfee's like, man, Herbstreit's going to dump this in, and the guest picker's going to dump this in. All of a sudden, the pool of money went up to $1.2 million. That made me nervous, man. If I was in that man's shoes, I'd forget his name. But if I was in there with him, I'd say, oh, my goodness, $1.2 million. That could answer a whole lot of questions, pay for some vacations, set me up for a lot of put a lot of the money into savings. There's a whole lot of things you can do in the immediate and also in the future with that $1.2 million. And so I know he missed the second one. The second one was close, but it was so close. I even had an audible response when he missed that kick because I was rooting for him. From my couch, I was sitting there like, hey, make this, do this. It's hard. And I think what that has done for a lot of humans, and Pat McAfee is a comedian. Yes, I know he's a sports talk not radio anymore, sports talk host. He's a comedian, but also realizes that's not easy. As a former kicker himself, tried to go to the NFL to be the kicker and punter for one team. That was not going to happen. He understands that the average human cannot realize how hard it is to kick without actually doing it. We sit on our couches, and I think our expectation is you are there under scholarship. You're there in general, under scholarship or not, to make that kick. That's why you're on the team, to make these kicks. And so I think from our standpoint, some people don't realize how hard it is. They're just very critical of kickers. Some people can realize how hard it is, but also realize that's your job. That's why you're there. And earlier this year, the reason why I think Ohio State needs to go out there and get Jesus Gomez, it's not because of Fielding's numbers. I'll go over this really quickly just from this year. He made all 54 of his extra points. He was 9 of 12 from field goals. He made 16 of his 20 field goal attempts in 2023. So it's not like he is just missing. He missed 3 this year for the year before. That's not good enough. Like, that's not good enough at all. He missed a kick earlier. I think it was against Nebraska. He missed 2 kicks this year against Michigan. Literally, if the game went the same way that it went and he made those kicks, Ohio State wins the game. That would have been one of the most ugliest wins Ohio State Michigan history over the past few decades, but they would have ultimately won the game. And I think that's a big reason, aside from Nebraska, aside from a couple years ago, that's a big reason why you got to move on. You missed the kicks against Michigan. Kicks you're supposed to make. You missed the kicks the year before. It's not good enough. It's not good enough at all. And if Jesus Gomez does take the wheel, will Ohio State be in a better spot next year? I believe so. Also, I'm reminded about something, and I was going to go a different way with this next comment as we close up shop, but this thought from a post-game press conference from earlier in the year just popped into my head. And it was after, I want to say it was after the Nebraska game, and Spencer Holbrook of Letterman Row ended up asking Ryan Day point blank, do you guys trust Jaden Fielding to make kicks? And Ryan Day responded by trying to explain some things in his thought process before saying yes. And that right there gave me the answer. You didn't immediately say yes. And I've seen Ryan Day pause a little bit before answering, and I've seen him immediately respond. He didn't immediately say yes. So while they may trust him to make kicks, I don't think they had trusted him to make all the kicks. Now, after that game, he made some kicks, so maybe you had a little bit more confidence in him, but ultimately he wasn't getting the job done. And kicking is a different. To me, kicking is different than playing running back or playing receiver, tight end, a linebacker. Literally, you can look at a stat sheet and say, is a guy getting it done or not by his numbers? That's it. It's that simple. And Ryan Day deciding to not immediately say yes when he was asked point blank, really yes or no question. Do you trust Jaden Fielding to make kicks? Yes or no? Like that, he could have said yes, could have said no. You're not going to say no in that instance, but he didn't immediately say yes. I'm not trying to read too into it, but something in there gave it a little didn't have the same vote of confidence at all that you want your coach to provide for your kicker. So for Jaden Fielding, still on the team. For Jesus Gomez, go out there and pursue him. He has been contacted by the Buckeyes. They've only contacted him once. Go ahead and do it more. Or go out there and find somebody that you truly trust. It might not be Jaden Fielding. May be Jaden Fielding. May it be Jesus Gomez. May not be Jesus Gomez. Whoever it is, you got to go out there and get somebody you trust. Because at big boy schools, you need to hit at all 3 levels of the game. Offense, defense, and special teams. And too many times, the Buckeyes offense has been rolling. The defense has been stopping people. But the special teams unit has not been getting it done. It's been better this year than it has been previously. But even sometimes it's on the coaches putting the wrong guys back there to return sometimes. Travian Henderson should not be back there returning kickoffs. Not at all. Who should be back there? A couple of the guys that I thought should be there are in the portal. So, one guy, I think Kojo Enwe could be a little bit good. Mylan Graham, put him back there deep. Now, the issue is he ain't done it all year, but you want to do it in the biggest game of the year. That's where the hiccup comes in. But there are guys at Ohio State that could be returners, be elite returners. Why are they not using them? I don't know. Why is Ohio State continually having issues kicking and punting? I don't know. But I do know this. Something has to change, and the change can come now. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Trust me, the portal talk is today. The next few days before the big game on Saturday night in prime time. We're talking Buckeyes and Vols and what Ohio State must do to win that game. Got a few thoughts that are going to be coming your way. Maybe a guest or two throughout the week as well. It's a big week. It's a big game. It's the playoffs for the first time in the shoe. We're going to ramp up the intensity as far as the Buckeyes and Vols conversation right here on the show, which is a good reason why you should follow and subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes there on the YouTube or on any audio podcast platform of your choosing. Subscribe on the YouTube, hit that notification button so you are notified every time a new video goes live, no matter if it's on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Turn those notifications on. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.